Hello, everyone. It's Bran. What the fuck? It's Bran, and welcome to another episode of Bran Awareness. All is off to a wonderful start. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I felt the need to vlog again just because I haven't done that in a while, and I kind of wanted to make it a more regular thing. So, I want to talk today a little bit about inspirations and influences when it comes to creating fiction. And in particular, people's reaction to learning that something was an inspiration or influenced by, or even like references and things like that. Because a lot of times you'll get interviews after something comes out and becomes kind of popular, and then, a common question to ask any creative person is, oh, who are your influences, or what influenced you, what did you like as a kid, yada yada, that sort of thing. And a lot of the times I feel like people take the answers that people give and then misconstrue them, or maybe not misconstrue, but take away the wrong things from those statements and those connections. Because a lot of times it's kind of this frustrating thing where people want to connect together things that maybe don't have too much of a connection, but it's like, oh, A leads to B leads to C. That's kind of just human nature. I think that's kind of how we like to categorize and throw everything on a convenient linear timeline and go, this leads to this leads to this. It's just how we make sense of the world. But I think that can lead to problems and kind of simplify things more than it actually does. I think that kind of leaves out the nuance, and I want to talk about kind of that process because I have been getting a little frustrated by people talking about media in this way in recent years, particularly last few months. So I'm playing Dragon Ball Z Extreme Butoden right now on the screen. This is a 3DS game, wonderful fighting game. I'm playing it, not gonna lie, because I've been in a Dragon Ball mood. The Dragon Ball Fighters, or Fighter Z, however you pronounce it, I prefer Fighters. The Dragon Ball Fighters open beta just closed. I actually canceled my Amazon order and then pre-ordered it digitally just so I could get into the beta a day early, and I don't regret that at all. It was a wonderful time. I really loved the time I spent with it. And I'm kind of resorting to this in the meantime just to play around with, more Dragon Ball characters and having fun and stuff because I'm in that mood. But one thing that you can see a lot of people, especially in the know and those people that are really dedicated to the Dragon Ball video games, pointing out is that some of the moves from this game in particular and from a PS2 game called Super Dragon Ball Z have been influences, or in some cases just almost verbatim moved over into Fighters. The developers of that game just thought, oh, hey, this looks really cool, or this works great for this character. Why don't we just put that in our game, If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess, that sort of thing. So I thought, hey, you know what, it's kind of appropriate to use this game to talk about the subject. So there's a few things that got me thinking about this in particular, two reasons. The first is I saw a tweet that really struck a chord with me, and it was from a person who, unfortunately, I can't give credit because I can't track down the original tweet. I tried really hard to find it, and I wanted to look back not only just to give the person credit, but also to find the proper wording of it. But basically, someone tweeted out something and got retweeted a lot, and it basically said, one of the worst parts of, armchair amateur nerd criticism is the belief that all media is created in response to another piece of media. And that is so true. It really struck a chord with me, like I said, just because you see this so often where people go, oh, this is a deconstruction of this thing that came out prior that everyone likes, or it's an argument supporting or against this other thing that came out recently that's super popular. It leaves out this idea that art or just any sort of fiction can be inspired by life, or just the life of the person who created it, or anything like that. It's this really boring way to look at it, in my opinion. So that got me thinking about it. And then the other thing is, recently, I watched Devilman Crybaby, which is a Netflix exclusive anime 10-episode series that came out. It is I guess you want to call it kind of a remake, kind of a modern-day reimagining adaptation of the Devilman manga, which is from, I want to say it's I don't know the exact year, but it's from the 1970s, so it's old. A little bit more obscure. Obviously it's a lot more popular over in Japan, but, we didn't really get anime or much manga at that time. I don't really think any of that stuff really started to come over till the 80s, and then even then it really didn't pick up in popularity till the 90s. So, not many people over here know about Devilman. It kind of had the JoJo's effect, where you see it becoming more and more popular, and people going, oh my god, how did we never know about this huge, amazing thing that everyone loves in Japan, but we don't know about, or whatever. And I don't even want to make that claim, because I actually really, I couldn't tell you how much of a big thing Devilman is over in Japan. And I tend to not trust Western internet nerds on that subject, I guess. But as soon as I watched that series, and I loved it, by the way, it's really fucked up. It's kind of in that category that Berserk is with me, where it's really fucked up, but I love it, and I can't really recommend it to anyone because of how fucked up it is. But that being said, I still really loved it. Definitely not for the faint of heart, but if you can deal with some horrendous shit, then Devilman Crybaby is really fucking good, I promise. But yeah, as soon as I finished it, I was like, oh god, this is gonna be a JoJo situation all over again, because some obscure thing that's kind of older from Japan comes over for the first time with this much popularity. And sure, there's been previous entry points for, like, you know, Western fans or whatever, but this is the first time it's come over and it's gotten really big. Now everyone has to rush to make the connections. Oh, so-and-so was influenced by Devilman. So-and-so said that they were inspired by Devilman growing up. Evangelion was partially inspired by Devilman, I guess, because Anno said in an interview somewhere that he really liked Devilman. Anything occult-based, SMT, Persona, like, anything that has, like, religious iconography, whatever, it all can trace back to Devilman, and people just go haywire with it, and I think it's such a boring, stupid way to look at media. JoJo fans are the fucking worst with it. I think we all know that at this point, though. It's kind of become a meme at this point, just how fucking pedantic JoJo fans are with pointing the dots everywhere, going, oh, well, JoJo inspired everything, and it's like, yeah, but also, like, that's fine. And also, I think that really reduces... Just because something inspired something else doesn't mean that the new thing doesn't have its own creative vision, originality, or even just a fresh set of eyes and a new take on subject matter. And also, it doesn't mean that it's going for the same thing particularly either. Like, Evangelion is not going for the same thing that Devilman is. Like, maybe they both have religious iconography and they're both fucked up, but they're fucked up for different reasons. Like, Devilman's a lot more of, like, a schlocky type of, like, violence and has more to say about kind of, like, the nature of humanity, whereas, like, Evangelion's more slower-paced, psychological, interpersonal relationships and how they're difficult and how they fail and stuff like that. I mean, there's just a lot of surface-level comparisons that I think really miss the point of that. And also, I think it makes, like, inspiration this thing that people are starting to become, like, afraid of or don't want to admit, or, like, a bad thing, which is stupid. And I really think that's painful to creative thinking in the long run. And it kind of reinforces this weird idea I don't like, that we need to have this reverence for old stuff. And this is coming from someone who loves playing, like, old video games, watching old anime and shit like that, and seeing how everything, like, kind of worked back in the day, and kind of how we get, like, I like seeing the historical ties like that, where what came before and how it kind of let us have what we have now, and, like, we've built upon those foundations to get where we are today, that sort of thing. I love seeing stuff like that, but even I have to admit, sometimes things are just old and kind of fucking outdated and not really that enjoyable by modern standards. And I think it's okay to not like the classics or not hold them to this admittedly really unhealthy reverence. Sometimes things just don't age well and they kind of suck now, and I think it's okay to admit that. Like, I mean, if you want to play that game, then we can just trace back everything to, like, the old religious myths and, like, folklore and all that shit, and basically just say, well, just put all that shit on a fucking pedestal. It's the greatest stuff ever made. Even stuff with, like, as obvious as, like, Berserk and Dark Souls. Like, it's very clear that a lot of Dark Souls stuff comes from Berserk originally, or had, you know, there was an influence there. But that doesn't mean that Berserk is this, like, mighty thing and people can't like Dark Souls more than Berserk. Like, there's a weirdness that people take to it. Like I said, JoJo fans are just terrible with it. Oh god, I remember this one time, I don't know if it's still there, but there's, like, a JoJo wiki page that has, like, all of the popular cultural, like, references or inspirations that stem from JoJo or whatever. And, like, one of them was something like, oh, this one character in Final Fantasy X wears gloves that have, like, studs in them, kind of like Star Platinum. It's probably a reference. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? They're gloves, you know, like... there's just this really unhealthy connection thing going on with people, I think, sometimes, and I don't want to be that guy that goes from one extreme to the other, because there's clearly fiction that exists as a response to other fiction. I'm not saying that never happens, and I do think it is helpful in analysis to bring up where something fits within a genre and medium, and also what year it came out, what the other contemporary works of the time were doing, and how it plays off of things of the past, and what the inspirations were and stuff like that. I do think all of that is relevant info, but I think that's like a good foundational starting line for critique, and it shouldn't be the end-all, be-all point. Because I'm seeing a lot of critique that I just get really bored of, where it's just really surface level connecting the dots. Oh, it was inspired by this, 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 or this, or, you know, even more boring than that is, oh, this new thing that came out, it's like X and Y mixed together to create Z, and it's like, no, that's not really, like, okay, maybe that's like, it gives me a general idea of what this thing is, but it's not really telling me anything about whether or not it works as a piece on its own terms. And that's what I really want more of these people that make this mistake to kind of do is, okay, you set up the foundation for what this thing is and kind of how it came to be. Does it actually work or not? What are the problems with it? What does it do really well? You need to still dive deeper in from that macro perspective to the micro. You need to tell me, does the story work? What are the problems with the story? What does it do well? What are its themes? What are good and bad about the characters and the setting and all of that, you know? But for so many people, it's just really that thing of, oh, this character was made as a deconstruction and whatever of this other character from a thing that came out 10 years ago, and it's like, okay, that's neat, I guess, but is it good? Just because something's a deconstruction doesn't mean that it fucking nails it out of the park. You can make a deconstruction that's bad. So yeah, I don't know, just something that's been on my mind lately, and just something that I think we should keep in mind as we analyze and look at the things we enjoy. So yeah, those are basically my thoughts. I think that creative influence and inspiration are both beautiful things, but I think this weird, unhealthy reverence to the past is maybe not such a good thing. I think that just because an old thing inspired a new thing, that doesn't mean that the new thing is inherently worth less than the old thing. I think that there's always room for both improvement and for an idea to be done better by someone else, even if it's not wholly original. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're looking forward to more Dragon Ball content on this channel, because oh boy, is there going to be a shit ton. Sorry if you're not a Dragon Ball fan, I guess. But yeah, hope you have a wonderful day. Have a good one. Bye.